Hello and welcome to Oh What Lovely Arms You Have. My name's Glen. Thank you very much for clicking on this video and being here with me today. Now, after I made a really long video all about Shakespeare's coat of arms, I found something that was a little bit curious, so I thought I'd do a little bit further research on it. So this is Ben Jonson's monument in Westminster Abbey, and according to the Westminster Abbey website, a monument to Johnson was erected in about 1723 by the Earl of Oxford and is in the eastern aisle of Poets' Corner. Well, I noticed that it didn't specify which Earl of Oxford, so I thought I'd do a little bit more research on that, and I was a little bit surprised by the result. So this is Aubrey de Vere, I should say, the 20th Earl of Oxford, and he was the last Earl of Oxford with that peerage, because he died in 1703, and then the Earl of Oxford became dormant. That's his coat of arms there. 21 coats of arms, very similar to Edward de Vere's 1586 arm. Now, although the peerage lay dormant, there was a new peerage that was created, a very unique and unusual peerage called the Earl of Oxford and Earl of Mortimer. So it's two peerages, but it's a single peerage. So the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer, single peerage. He wasn't a de Vere himself, but he did marry a de Vere, and hence was able to revive or resuscitate it. It was created in 1711 for Robert Harley. Harley was the eldest son of Sir Edward Harley, and that's the coat of arms for the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer. Does it seem familiar? Let's play spot the difference. Here's the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer coat of arms, and here is Shakespeare's coat of arms. I should say the picture is affecting the colour slightly. They are both gold. Okay, so, I can tell you what I can see different, which is the charge is different. So the spear, there's no spear, and instead you have a secondary charge here, a cottis, and there's no cottis there. Other than that, they both have a field of ore, so they both have a background of gold, and they both have a bend sable. This is a bend here, and sable means black, so they both have a black bend. The only difference is the charge, which is very interesting. In Cardan's, not Cardan's Comforts, The Accedents of Armoury, which is a very important book, which is by Edward de Vere. I'll prove that to you in a second. It pretty much proves that William Shakespeare from Stratford isn't the author of Shakespeare, and has loads of other witty and brilliant things that are taking place there. And there's lots of deliberate and very witty faults. Here's one such fault. So he talks about here a cottis, which is the fourth part of a bend, a quarter of a bend. But he also uses this word here, batten. Well, a batten is not a cottis. A batten is couped, it's cut at either end. That's a batten there. So a batten would be, for instance, that, much like a spear is batten-like. So you can see from a comparison that your cottis is very similar to a batten in its breadth, which is really interesting. And it's really interesting that the cottis and the batten are in this particular printing error here, and the cottis has been chosen here. How interesting. No batten, but a cottis. I'll just remind you of Shakespeare's coat of arms here. Shakespeare's coat of arms, and the falcon on top holding that spear upright is really important and should always be included on the top of Shakespeare's arms. So this is Robert Harley, the first Earl of Oxford and Mortimer. Here's his coat of arms, 20 coats there, but importantly you can see the first coat and the last coat is this coat that we have just been looking at. So the Earl of Oxford and the Earl of Mortimer. Let's have a look at where this peerage went. So I should say I believe Robert Dudley is the father of Edward de Vere, which I've proven in my last video. Well, the first person was Robert Harley, first Earl of Oxford and Earl of Mortimer. Robert Dudley's son was Edward de Vere. Oh, Edward Harley, the second Earl of Oxford and Earl of Mortimer. Edward de Vere's son was Henry de Vere. Yep, Henry Cavendish Harley. Oh, there seems to be some nice mirroring going on. And then what do we have? Edward, and my personal favourite, Ed Harley. So, the Earl of Oxford and Mortimer also had a motto. Their motto was Virtute et Fide. Forgive my Latin pronunciation. By virtue and faith. Now, virtue is very, very important. We like virtue. This is taken from the Iconologia, which is another book published by de Vere, which is great. We love virtue. Here's a letter by Edward de Vere talking about virtue, which we'll have a look at in more depth in a second. Virtue yet will ever abide us, yet that shall mount with our minds into the highest heavens by your loving and assured friend, E. Oxenford. We love virtue. Is that an 8? We love virtue. So that letter comes from Cardan's Comfort, which is a translation of Girolamo Cardano's work. Now, if you don't know who Cardano is, he was an Italian polymath who was brilliant. Published over 200 works in science and maths. Was really, really influential for Newton, Leibniz, Gauss, Pascal, all the big names. Personal friend of Leonardo da Vinci. He was a true Renaissance genius. I think the fact that de Vere is publishing, it was published at his request, and he likely actually translated it himself, and contains some letters and a nice poem. It kind of indicates what de Vere is doing here and the kind of man he is. So here's said letter we just looked at. Now, the important thing from this letter, you'll notice all these V's here that are not joined. The important thing here is virtue. Let's just count how many times virtue appears. Virtue, virtue, virtuous, virtue, virtues. I love this one. Virtuous, good, no. And virtuous actions, virtue. So we have virtue 8 times. That's really important. I'll say it again. We have virtue 8 times. You'll see why in a minute or so. By your loving and assured friend, E. Oxenford. There's also that pilcrow there. You might also notice there's the P of the pensions there, but there's a pilcrow there, which is a little bit unusual. So if we go to the Ascendance of Armories, which is a really, really important book, and I believe is one of the books that's going to end the authorship debate. I encourage you to read it. It's a good read. It's brilliant. So this is from just after the title page, talking about the vignette on the front. And if I just pop the letter that we've been looking at beforehand, well, you'll notice there's the pilcrows. So the pilcrows form a link between these two things, and you'll notice there's some double V's there. And it's really important in this work to always pay attention to what people are pointing to or looking at, because they're typically signalling you something. So this guy's pointing, looking. Oh, what's in this corner? It's a double V. De Vere. It's a sign of that the work is by Edward de Vere. But just in case you don't believe that, you're like, oh, 3 people looking and giving their attention and pointing to it isn't enough for me, Glenn. Well, here we go. Scried here, if hereby your minds be stirred by virtue, to seek what erst you lack, perhaps like the name of the author, then are ye also indebted to this well-deserving author, but of necessity enforced ye of elder fame, embrace the man and love the work, for here your virtues are displayed and blazed to the world that but in corners lurked before. So it tells you to go back, look in the corner, what is lurking, and it is our double V. So there's two proofs for you, the Pilcrow and the double V. There's actually another one there as well, but I'm not going to talk about it. And we have a to the reader in the front, always important, and it is by virtue. If we have a look at the final page of the Ascendants of Armoury, though, well, we have another piece of evidence. Well, if we have a look at who we have Atlas and we have Hercules. Here's Hercules and its heroic virtue in the Iconologia. We also have Pegasus, who is the force of virtue. Around this emblem, volat alta ad sedela virtus, which is virtue flies to the heavens. If I pop that letter back up again, and remind you of what that said, virtue yet will ever abide with us, yet shall mount with our minds into the highest heavens. Virtue flies to the heavens. So it's even saying what the motto is saying effectively: by your loving and assured friend, E. Oxenford. You'll notice there's that Pilcrow there, and what are they pointing to? Well, we're pointing to a P here. If you just rotate this round, you'll see that it is indeed a P. So we have our P there. And what also are we pointing? Oh, that is an 8. And of course, you remember from what we saw before that virtue occurs 8 times in that letter. So there's a really strong proof that Edward de Vere is the author of this book. And if we return to this coat of arms once more, the question I want to pose is, how might Edward de Vere feel about this? Because he set up a very brilliant and complex game, and I'm not entirely sure he would approve of this new Earldom being created, which kind of makes a little bit of a mockery of taking this shield. So I wonder how Edward de Vere would feel about this. And lastly, it might be nice for Westminster Abbey perhaps to specify in a little bit more detail who that Earl of Oxford is. For instance, is it the 17th Earl of Oxford? Anyway, thank you very much.